And what I always remember about Australia is because my wife ran women's basketball for years, and I was at the Olympics and all.
I mean, my mom raised me, so she was most important. My mom and dad got divorced when I was, 3 or 4 years old.
And the great thing is, and I wish I could have had the same opportunity to do what I was able to do for my son Canyon, that I couldn't do for my other four boys, for Scooter and John and Brent and Drew, is that to be there all the time. Well, because when they were doing it, I mean, I was busy. I was still working for a living, doing things.
His ex-wife just revealed the abusive pattern of abandonment that defined Rick Barry's family relationships. At 80 years old, Rick stands as an NBA legend, a champion, a member of the 75th anniversary team. His technical brilliance is undeniable. His place in history is secure, yet his legacy is defined by conflict and a family that grew up without him. If you're watching this right now, please use the hype feature and give this video some support. What you're about to hear is the complete story of a man who solved basketball but failed at human connection. If this story speaks to you, show us you're here by hitting that hype button. The paradox at the heart of Rick Barry's life is that he could solve basketball but could not keep people close. He was a man who mastered physics but remained willfully ignorant of chemistry. The true scandal is not a single event or headline. It is the cumulative weight of a lifetime with zero compromise, where a pursuit of basketball perfection required destroying absolutely everything around him. To understand Barry's failures as a person, you must first confront his genius as a player. They come from the same place. They are rooted in the same rigid mind that refused compromise. Rick Barry did not see basketball as art. He saw it as efficiency. He saw it as problems to solve mathematically. The most famous symbol of this mindset is his free throw technique, the underhand shot that people called the granny shot, or shooting like a girl. People mocked it across playgrounds and in locker rooms, but mathematically, it was superior to everything else. The underhand motion removes variables. It eliminates the elbow extension and the wrist flick that degrade under pressure and fatigue. Instead, it relies on the larger shoulder muscles and creates consistent backspin naturally. This backspin makes the ball sit on the rim instead of bouncing off. Barry's father drilled this technique into him relentlessly from childhood. Barry resisted at first because he was ashamed of the stigma. His father told him something that became the defining ethos of his entire life. Son, they can't make fun of you if you make them. That logic held true throughout his career. Barry's free throw percentage was 89.3%, 7th all-time in NBA and ABA records. His best season was 1978-79, 94.7%, an NBA record at that time. He made 60 consecutive free throws, yet other players refused to learn. Shaquille O'Neal said he would rather shoot 0% than shoot underhand. To Barry, that was a character flaw. He said, "I don't know how you live with yourself doing that." He viewed their refusal as a moral failure, not merely a stylistic choice. In 1974 to 1975, Rick Barry entered his prime and put on a masterclass. The Golden State Warriors that season were not loaded with talent. They were role players, rookies, and castoffs, all centered around Rick Barry's gravitational pull. He averaged 30.6 points per game. He led the entire league in steals at 2.9 per game. He ranked 6th in the league in assists at 6.2. Every possession flowed through his hands. He was the offense incarnate. In the finals, the Warriors faced the Washington Bullets, a team loaded with Hall of Famers like Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld. The Warriors were massive underdogs. Nobody expected them to win, but under Barry's leadership, they swept the Bullets 4-0. Barry won Finals MVP. He proved he could drag a team to the summit through sheer force of will. But this victory came with a price. Barry drove his teammates relentlessly. He berated them for mistakes. He rolled his eyes at their failures. He demanded perfection. And while they won, while the trophy came home, the feeling in that locker room was cold and distant. Teammate Clifford Ray noted that Barry lacked diplomacy. That is an understatement for a man whose leadership style was fueled purely by antagonism. In 1967, fresh off leading the NBA in scoring, Rick Barry became the first superstar to defect to the American Basketball Association, the upstart rival league. He signed with the Oakland Oaks, driven by a lucrative contract and the presence of his father-in-law Bruce Hale as coach. The Warriors sued him. Barry sat out the entire 1967-68 season. A prime year of his athletic peak was wasted in a courtroom. When he finally played in the ABA, he dominated and won a championship in 1969. But the defection branded him as a mercenary. To the NBA establishment and the media, he was a man who prioritized money and ego over loyalty. He was an outsider. This label would haunt him when he returned to the NBA, contributing to the narrative that he viewed teams as vehicles for his own enrichment rather than families to be built. Few players in professional sports history have been as universally disliked by their peers as Rick Barry. This animosity was not the result of one incident, but a sustained campaign of abrasiveness spanning decades. He publicly undressed his teammates on the court. He threw his hands up in disgust when they missed. He critiqued their play to reporters. Hall of Famer Robert Parrish began his career with the Warriors and offered a chilling assessment. He was always looking down at you. Parrish found Barry's arrogance intolerable. There is a story about his locker room behavior that became symbolic. Barry kept a personal recliner, a lazy boy that only he could sit in. His teammates used standard benches. That physical manifestation of his separation screamed that he considered himself above the collective. Barry has rarely apologized but has acknowledged this behavior. He told the Chicago Tribune, "I was not an easy person to get along with. I didn't have a lot of tact." To Barry, tact was inefficiency. Honesty, no matter how brutal, was the only currency he valued. A dark cloud persists over Barry's legacy, the accusation of racism. This perception was cemented in his broadcasting career when he commented on a photo of Bill Russell. "It looks like some fool grinning like a watermelon." The comment invoked painful racial stereotypes and was widely condemned. Barry claimed ignorance, saying he meant only the shape of the smile. But the comment resonated because it aligned with his reputation from his playing days. However, this narrative is complicated by his relationship with Clifford Ray, the African-American center of the 1975 championship team. Ray remains one of Barry's defenders, arguing Barry was an equal opportunity hater who despised incompetence regardless of race. Ray said the man had the greatest season I'd ever seen. Ray dismissed the MVP vote snub, where players voted Bob McAdoo over Barry as a popularity contest. The most damning allegation against Rick Barry occurred on May 16, 1976, Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals against the Phoenix Suns. The Warriors were defending champions and heavy favorites to repeat. Early in the first quarter, Barry drove and was fouled hard by rookie Ricky Sobers. A melee erupted. Barry and Sobers grappled. Punches were thrown. Crucially, Barry's teammates did not rush to his defense. They hesitated. The superstar was left to fend for himself. The prevailing theory, popularized by Bill Simmons, is that Barry felt betrayed by his team. He watched the fight replay at halftime and saw his teammates standing idle. He decided to exact revenge. In the second half, Barry effectively stopped shooting. He played hot potato, passing immediately upon receiving the ball. The box score supports this. He took only 19 shots in the game. His series average was 24.5. In crucial closing minutes, the leading scorer was a spectator in his own offense. The Warriors lost 94-86. The Suns advanced. The Warriors dynasty ended. Barry has vehemently denied the quit narrative for nearly 50 years, calling it absolute nonsense and an insult to his integrity. He claims he never watched the halftime tape. He argues that the Suns switched defenses to deny him the ball, forcing him to pass. He frames his passivity as a tactical adjustment that his teammates failed to capitalize on. He insists his teammates did eventually come to his aid, but visual evidence and observer testimony suggest otherwise. The consensus is that Barry, feeling slighted, engaged in malicious compliance. He did exactly what the defense dictated to an extreme degree, knowing it would lead to a loss, thereby proving the team could not win without him. It was ego. It was a championship sacrifice to make a point. Rick Barry is the patriarch of a basketball dynasty. 4 of his sons played professionally. A 5th is a current pro. Yet this dynasty was built largely in his absence. The revelation dominating modern discourse centers on Pam Hale, Barry's first wife and the daughter of his college coach. When Rick and Pam divorced, the split was acrimonious. Pam was the primary architect of the Barry boys' success. She raised them as a single mother while Rick pursued his career and new relationships. The estrangement was so severe that years passed with Rick as effectively a stranger. The tension lingered into adulthood. When one son played in the NCAA championship game for Kansas in 1988, Rick and Pam had to sit on opposite sides of the arena to avoid conflict. The most damaging evidence against Rick Barry comes not from sports writers, but from his own children. Their words paint a picture of a father who was emotionally and physically absent. Now we come to the Barry sons, and I will number them for you in reverse order of their birth. Number 5 is Canyon Barry. Canyon is Rick's youngest son, born to his third wife, Lynn Nornberg. Unlike his older half-brothers, Canyon grew up in a different era of Rick's life. Canyon is a professional player in the G League and Team USA 3x3 basketball. Canyon is the only son to adopt the underhand free throw. Watching Canyon shoot is like seeing a ghost from 1975. The mechanics are identical. Canyon's embrace of the shot validates Rick's life's work, proof that the method was always sound. In Canyon, Rick finally found a student willing to listen. Number 4 is Drew Barry. Drew stated that seeing his father would be a shock. He bluntly said, "My dad has nothing to do with the kind of player I am. A man passed down genetic talent, but could not pass down presence." The coldness in that quote speaks to the emotional distance that defined their relationship. Number 3 is Brent Barry. Brent is cited as having the closest relationship with Rick, though even he admitted to going months without speaking to his father. Brent found his marriage at the center of an NBA scandal around 2010. Tony Parker, the San Antonio Spurs star and Brent's teammate, had been sexting with Aaron Barry. This betrayal led to the divorces of both Parker and Brent. Rick commented characteristically blunt, the straw that broke the camel's back. While Rick ostensibly supported his son, the public nature of the commentary highlighted the Barry family's inability to keep their pain private. Another instance of the Barry name associated with conflict and betrayal. Number 2 is John Barry. John echoed his brother's sentiment, crediting his grandfather Bruce Hale for teaching them the game. John said, "We never sat down and worked on it together." A man with a son who became an NBA player, yet they never worked on the game together. That absence speaks volumes. Number 1 is Scooter Barry. Scooter said, "I won't forget the times I didn't hear from him more than once or twice a year. I had to act as if I didn't have a father because basically I didn't." Rick justified his absence by claiming he didn't want to make his sons nervous by attending their games. Scooter dismantled this. "I think saying that I would be nervous created an excuse for him not to come. Here's the ultimate indictment. A father willing to sacrifice his presence based on a rationalization his own son rejected as false." These quotes reveal a profound disconnect. While the world saw the Barry DNA in his son's jump shots, the sons themselves felt no connection to the man who provided it. They felt absence. They felt the ghost in the stands who never showed up. Perhaps the most tragic aspect is Rick's lack of self-awareness regarding his failures. In interviews, he has offered a defense of his parenting that directly contradicts his son's lived experiences. He said, "I feel very fortunate to have as good a relationship with my kids as I do. I may not have been the best husband in the world, but nobody can say I was a bad father." This statement manifests the psychological profile that made him great as a player, but flawed as a human. He defines fatherhood by resources or genetic transmission. His sons define it by presence and emotional support, metrics where he failed completely. The gap between Rick's perception and Scooter's reality is the chasm where the family's trauma resides. Today, Rick Barry is 80 years old. He has not mellowed into a beloved elder. He remains sharp, opinionated, and combative. His broadcasting career was eventually derailed by his own nature. The watermelon comment regarding Bill Russell ended his run as a premier broadcaster. In recent years, he has engaged in feuds with modern media figures, most notably Bill Simmons. Simmons's The Book of Basketball Codified. The Rick Barry is a prick narrative for an entire generation. Barry took deep offense, calling the criticism unfair. He remains a man fighting for his reputation, unable to let the past lie dormant. There is, however, a strange note of redemption in Canyon Barry. Canyon is a validation of Rick's life's work, proof that the underhand free throw was always sound. Watching Canyon shoot is like watching 1975. Canyon's embrace of the shot is proof that the method will live on even if relationships did not. The scandal of Rick Barry is not that he was a bad boy in the traditional sense. He didn't party, he didn't do drugs, he didn't break the law. His scandal was one of personality and choice. He was a man who optimized his life for basketball efficiency at the expense of human connection. He treated relationships like free throws, mechanical processes that could be perfected if one just ignored the crowd. He succeeded in the game. He achieved immortality in the record books. But the revelations from his ex-wife and quotes from his sons serve as the final box score of his personal life, a stat sheet filled with missed assists and technical fouls. And yet there is something to learn here, something that transcends the particular tragedy of one man's life. You can be brilliant. You can be right about everything. You can be technically superior. You can master the game, own the records, secure the championship. But if you do all of that at the expense of people who love you, if you sacrifice presence for perfection, if you choose efficiency over emotion, then what have you really won? You can be 80 years old and still fighting to defend your legacy, still alone, still defending your honor. Or you could have been the man who showed up, who sat down with his sons, who said, "Yes, I was wrong. I missed years I can never get back." That would have required a kind of courage that statistics cannot measure. Rick Barry remains the master of the underhand free throw. A genius who was right about the physics, but tragically wrong about the chemistry. And in that wrongness lies the true scandal. Not the abusive patterns, not the estrangement, not the controversial moments. The scandal is the simple, heartbreaking reality that he never learned that winning at basketball is not the same as winning at life. That is the legacy that matters most.